I was very disappointed with the verdict because there was really no evidence against them. All of the evidence suggested that they were innocent and that it was a blatant setup. So it was really upsetting and, though not surprising, because the fact that they were arrested and the fact that they were charged suggested that they were going to be convicted, because there was no evidence at any stage of the proceeding. There was no due process, there was no rule of law, so it was not that surprising that they were then convicted. The fact that they were arrested under these circumstances, and we now know the arrest was a setup. A police captain testified at the trial that they had been instructed to provide documents to these two reporters and then to arrest them with the documents and claim that they had secret documents. So we understood that this was a setup from the beginning. So it didn't seem like a test. It seemed like an effort to prevent them from reporting on a very powerful story they were working on about a massacre of 10 individuals in the village of Indin. And I think the goal was to stop them from reporting, but also to deter other journalists from looking too closely at what was going on. No, I'm not in a position from here to speak with them, but those of our staff who are on the ground see them as they come and go between the courthouse and the prison, and they've certainly spoken with them, and their families have spoken with them, and their spirits seem high. Walon and Choso came out of the court today and said they weren't afraid. They knew they had done nothing wrong, and they were committed to seeing it through. I think also they were committed to having us go ahead and publish the story, even though, at least theoretically, it could have put them in more jeopardy. So I see them as so committed to doing what they're doing that it's giving them a lot of strength. I think naturally the families are very upset. Walon and his wife just had a baby girl, and Choso has a 3-year-old, so it's very hard on the families for the fathers to be separated not only from the wives but from these very young children. And the breakup of the families is one of the great tragedies of this. I think they're also holding up well. Family members came to New York when PEN America honored them, and I spent quite a bit of time with them. And they seem very committed and very, very proud of Walon and Choso for what they've accomplished. The chilling effect on journalism in Myanmar, but I'd also note that reporters there have backed Walon and Choso very strongly. They've come to court, they've rallied, they've demonstrated, they've worn T-shirts. So I do think there's a very strong commitment to covering what's going on in that country.
What are your feelings about Aung San Suu Kyi as it relates to this case, or is there any?
Our goal has not been to personalize this and to focus on her specifically, but rather to both tell the world what the facts are and also hope that the Myanmar government and her government sees it as both honest, just, and frankly advantageous to them to let our journalists out. When you arrest people who have done nothing wrong except commit journalism, when you charge them with a crime that carries very serious sentences and goes back to the colonial era, essentially sharing secrets with the enemy, that's something that I think the government should not want to be associated with. And the government has made a lot of efforts over recent years to show the world that it's democratizing, that this is a democracy in the making. And it's absolutely clear to us at Reuters, and I think to most people in the media, that a free press is essential to democracy. So I think it would be a wonderful statement by Myanmar to recognize that and to affirm the right of journalists to report freely. We think that there's no time like the present to get them out. They've been in there for 9 months for doing absolutely nothing wrong except doing journalism in the public interest. So we very much don't want to allow a lot of time to pass. We see this as a matter of enormous urgency, and we hope people don't lose interest. Sometimes in these situations, people are interested for a while, and then they move on to something else. But this is one where we need sustained interest so that Walon and Choso can go back to their families and go back to doing the jobs they are supposed to be doing.